Welcome to the second-ish half of Project Lightning Talks. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, if you were in this session this morning, it's going to be very similar, so, you know.
Kick it off. Okay, well.
Here we are.
Yeah, welcome all mad scientists. So Lori and I, Lori aka Morty, I'm Rick, in case you didn't get the reference. We are here to be your interdimensional tour guides to the wonderful and often confusing CNCF landscape. But think of this, we're kind of giving a little bit of a survival guide to go along with the map that is the landscape. So we're going to get into a few things, and hopefully, you know, we'll have a little fun. I'll tell a few bad jokes, but we'll give you some. Yeah, they're bad. I skipped one already, actually, and but we'll give you some useful info about how to evaluate projects, how to figure out where to start when you're faced with this giant wall of projects. So yeah, let's kick it off. I will kick it off, of course, by introducing myself. I am not, in fact, Rick from Rick and Morty. I am, I'll take this guy off. I am Katherine Druckman. I am an open source advocate, community and project contributor. I like to also say recovering engineer. Some people, that resonates strongly with a few of you, maybe or maybe not, but it sometimes gets a laugh. I'm a little disappointed it didn't just now. But these days, I am involved in several community efforts at the intersection of open source, security, and AI. That's what I'm really excited about these days. And gearing up to do the next big thing, which, you know, will be announced later. But yeah, when I'm not doing that, I am helping people in the community find their way through this wonderful, open, collaborative community that we are all a part of.
Sweet. And my name is Lorusso, or you can call me Morty today if you'd like. I am the Director of Outreach at the Rust Foundation. I like wearing costumes. This is a picture of me and my daughter for Halloween. She was an axe murderer, and I was the police officer arresting her. Yeah, she did a good job. She did all that herself, and I just, you know, bought the most appropriate-looking police costume on Amazon. As you know, it was probably very difficult. Anyway, so here's my LinkedIn. I am a CNCF ambassador. I work with Katherine. We've been working together for years with other foundations, the CDF, the OpenSSF. I've been in DevRel for a really long time, and so one of the things, I was the CNCF marketing chair a couple years ago, and one of the things I ran on was giving the projects more visibility. So when George said he was starting Project Lightning Talks and they had the Project Pavilion, I was like, sign me up, what can we do? So speaking of George, oh, and feel free to link in with me. That's a QR code straight to my LinkedIn. Just say where we met and I'll accept you. One of the things George is working on, and he's not here, and if you don't know who George Castro is, I highly recommend you go to the Project Pavilion sometime this week and meet him. If you have any questions on what's going on with CNCF projects, he's the one you want to know. He started something called askcncf.io. So ask.cncf.io. So while we're going to go over the landscape, the CNCF landscape, if you have any other questions about things happening within CNCF, that is exactly what ask.cncf.io is all about. It's completely trained on only CNCF information. So if you have a question, it should be able to be answered via his new tool. So that's the cool stuff that George has been working on to make things easier for you. And now we're going to talk about how we can dispel the craziness that is the CNCF landscape. So first of all, what is the Cloud Native Computing Foundation? I hope you all know because you're here. Our goal is to make cloud native computing ubiquitous. So I'd like for you guys to participate a little bit. So how many of you are currently working, representing a project today? All right.
Thank you.
So we have over 212 projects at the CNCF. We have over almost 300,000 contributors. How many of you are actively contributing to a CNCF project?
Awesome.
Okay. Hopefully by the end of the week, more hands will go up. And then lastly, we have almost 800 members that are supporting all of the work at the CNCF. How many of you belong to a company that is a CNCF member? Okay, so here's the deal. If your company is a CNCF member, if you're not sure, check it out the site and make sure you are, because there are tons of benefits to employees that are CNCF members, like training and certifications and all that stuff. So you want to make sure that you're not missing out by virtue of the person that pays the bills doesn't tell you what you get. It happens.
So let's talk about why we're here, right? We're here to talk about the projects. Those over 200 of them, right? So many. Where do you start? But something to keep in mind is that there are 3 main stages of maturity for CNCF projects. Now, the first one, it's sandbox, incubating, and graduated. Now, the first one, what is a sandbox project? What does that even mean? Before I mention that, I should mention there are also archived projects. There's about 20-ish of them. Sometimes a project just doesn't take off. Sometimes it needs to reach end of life, then it gets archived, but that's not something to worry about too much. But yeah, so what's a sandbox project? A sandbox is an experiment. You start with kind of a hypothesis. You think, I'm going to use it again. You think, I have an idea. Let's orchestrate containers using tiers and YAML. And the foundation, you know what I'm talking about. And so you pitch this, and the foundation says, sure, you know what? Tiers and YAML, let's give it a shot. And that's a sandbox, right? It's a proving ground. It's an experimental stage. Now, does that mean you can't use the thing, or you can't tinker with it or evaluate it? No, it's so black and white, right? But then the next stage, once it gets a little bit more momentum, a few more contributors, a little bit more stability on paper anyway, and passes the next stage in the life cycle is incubating. So, and again, these are things that are more widely used, some in production, but they're not yet completely graduated. They have not yet passed all of the checks to a graduated project.
And so if you haven't understood by now, donating a project or working on a project in the CNCF is a marathon and it's not a sprint. So depending on where you come on, it could take many years for you to get graduated. I don't know if you saw the announcement the other day, Control Plane just graduated. As we all know, Kubernetes turned 10, they graduated, Prometheus. So there's obviously a path to graduation, but to get there, there are certain things that need to happen. So you need to have high adoption. You have to meet all the incubation criteria. You have to have a governance process. You have to have committers from at least 2 organizations that show that they are going to continue to work on the project. And then most importantly, you have to meet the Linux Foundation Core Infrastructure Initiative's Best Practices Badge. So there's tons of things that you have to do to check off to get to graduation. And when you look, you can see that this is the project count over time at the CNCF. Now, what is really interesting to me is when you look at 2020, and you see this huge spike in projects at the CNCF. Now, why do we think that is? Could it be because we were all home trying to figure out what to do with our time and how to work remotely and how to make things better across the board?
Surviving on coffee.
Yeah,
maybe.
Caffeine was needed. So what's really cool is it gives a breakdown. As you see, there's 148 projects in Sandbox. It's by far the biggest. There are 36 that are currently incubating, 34 that are graduated, and like Katherine said, 20 that are archived. So there are plenty of opportunities for those of you that did not raise your hand to contribute at any of these levels. But you're like, okay, Lori, that's great, 200 plus projects. It's awesome to see they're taking up, but
that's a lot of projects.
What does that mean? I don't understand. How do we move forward? As Morty would say, I hate all of this, right? And what we want to say is we want you to be very critical about how you investigate the landscape. So this is Katherine's sort of scientific method.
Yes, taking the Rick and Morty theme possibly too far. But let's take a step back, right? When you look at the landscape, which we're going to get to in just a sec, and see all of this wall of logos, and yeah, they're sorted by maturity stage, and they're sorted by functionality and where they might fit in your stack, but it's still so overwhelming. But first, we just take a few basic steps, right? First, figure out what problem you're trying to solve for your own needs. What types of projects should you even evaluate? And that's going to narrow it down for you, right? And then you're going to filter it. You're going to filter it maybe by maturity, maybe by functionality. But then you're also going to take all of the great information in the landscape to evaluate the project health. And then you're going to just experiment, right? As you're building your things, you're going to kick the tires on multiple projects. But the most important thing is contribute. Where you see opportunities to help a project grow, if it fits your needs, we would love for you. The big takeaway from this is to contribute to the ones that need the help the most. So let's move on and get into that, that landscape. Here it is.
Okay.
It's big.
So this is a landscape, and as you can see, it is quite cumbersome. It is tons of logos, it is a bunch of different size boxes, and there are tons of categories as to where things fit in. So that in and of itself, like if you had seen this a few years ago, you would have vomited. This is actually a very nice, cleaned up version. So some of the things that Katherine mentioned is filtering. So there's a beautiful pink box that lets you filter. So let's filter by CNCF projects that are currently in production that are not archived. Whew, that was nice. It shrinks things down for you, but then you can filter it out even more. So say you're interested in security. How many people in this room are interested in security?
Thank you for
I love it. The
caring about
hands have
security.
gone up over the years. It's nice.
Actually, throughout the day, that's more hands than this morning.
So they have security categorized under provisioning. So we go ahead and go back to filtering, we go back to provisioning and hit apply. And now we are left with the security-focused projects at the CNCF that are currently incubating sandbox or graduated. Some of them you might recognize like Falco or Open Policy Agent. Some of them you might not recognize, which is great, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to dig in deeper. The other thing I'd want to kind of point out is this little download button right here. So you can download the project CSV. And what does that do for you? It gives you just some really good snapshot information. It has all the projects in alphabetical order, the maturity level, when they were accepted, what level they're at, and when they moved up the ranks. And then what I feel to my security people, which is really important, the last security audit date, right? So you can see how are these projects just on a very cursory level doing in terms of their security profile. But okay, let's get back to, let's go to Helm.
We love Helm. Helm's a great project. It is a graduated project. Helm has been around for quite a while. It is a Kubernetes package manager, if you will. If you're familiar with Helm charts, Helm, right? Helm is one of those great tools that is so good at its job that you forget it's there. And you know what happens when you forget it's there? You forget to contribute. You forget to submit issues. You forget to fix bugs. You forget all of those things. So yeah, anyway, that's a thing to remember about projects of any stage. They could all use your help. I realize this is a theme that we keep hammering into you, but yes, contribute always. So how do you find opportunities to contribute when you're evaluating projects? So something like Clo Monitor is a wonderful tool for evaluation. It gives you a series of checks for best practices. It can tell you information like project health, the amount of contributions it's getting, how healthy is that community. It gives you a numerical score, but there's a lot of nuance behind a lot of these scores. It also drills down into specific areas, and anytime you see a red X, that's not a time to panic. What that's a time for is to do a little due diligence. You figure out, well, why does it have that X? Is there something I can do to help? I need to use this project in production for my needs, but the sustainability of all of these projects depends on the users giving back and paying attention to these opportunities for contribution. So anytime you see a red X, I would love for you to think of it as not a flag, but an opportunity.
And one of the things I think is really important is the way that Clo Monitor evaluates certain things that might be very important to your organization. So if you are concerned with the CRA, the Cyber Resiliency Act, that is...
I hope you all are.
Yeah, so it gets into effect in 2027, but you should be working towards becoming compliant now. You know, a software bill of materials is important. So right now, Helm doesn't have that sort of built in. So that's an area that, you know, may be a thumbs up from your person or a thumbs down, or again, it's open source using open source. Maybe you go to OpenSSF's website and figure out the new cool SBOM tool so that you have that included in what you're doing and in your stack. But I think these are things that, like, when you go back to sort of what Katherine was saying, sort of your methodology on how you're evaluating projects, that's something I think to really think about is it's not just what do I need today, is this project gonna fit me for tomorrow? And with all of the things happening in the land of open source and accountability and like I said, the CRA, for sure, Europe is definitely jumping ahead of the US in terms of how they're trying to regulate. These are things that you should think about.
So what is our next project? So we have a couple other projects. Well, we can skip ahead.
We're running short on time.
Yeah. So external, let's go back.
Let's go here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I did want to point out, though, when you look at something that's like sandbox graduated or incubating, some of them may have higher scores than others, some don't. It's not black and white. That's the biggest takeaway, is in evaluating these projects, do due diligence. We have a few recommendations for you when you're looking into the projects that you want to use for yourself, when you're sitting here and listening to people talk about their projects. These are the things that we think you should think about in terms of figuring out if this is a project that is something that you want to use or contribute to.
So as we are wrapping up, we do want to, just point again, like contributions are key to keeping this ecosystem moving along. But we do highly recommend just like checking out, landscape.cncf.io, for you to kind of really see like what projects are you using, what projects can build on top of what you're doing. But use Clo Monitor. Again, it's super easy. You just click on the project logo itself. You can drill down. These aren't vanity metrics. These are like hardcore numbers that are going to help you determine if this is the right project for you. And then go through. Again, a 71 doesn't make or break it, but you can see like, ooh, security for my security peeps might not be the best. So not that it's not the best, but like there's room for improvement, and maybe you can be that improver.
Be your own hero.
Yeah. So again, Lori, Katherine, check us out.
Find us.
LinkedIn.
Happy
we're there.
to help.
Yeah. Thank you so much.